Hello there. I recently played a weekend congress, and I thought it would be fun to do another little series like I did before, just going through each of my games and analysing them. Starting off, unsurprisingly, with round one. I'm playing against an 1800, so I am the higher rated player. I am the favourite, technically, in the game, but they put up a really, really good fight and drag it out. This ends up being a 4 hour game, and for people that play a lot of congresses, that you probably know that the first round is in the evening on the Friday, most of the time, which was the case for this event. And man, just arriving on the Friday evening and just playing 4 hours of chess until 11, it can take it out of you. I'm lucky that I'm just focusing on the chess at the moment, and I hadn't come from like a week of school or a week of work. Yeah, only reason I was still awake at the end of this game for sure. But yeah, let's go on with it. Let's have a look. So, I start with 1c4, which, for those of you that don't know, is the English opening. I've been enjoying playing the English recently. Usually I vary the move order I play, but recently I've started playing 1c4, mainly for the reason that now if they want to go d5, they have to spend a tempo on e6 d5 or c6 d5 to actually get the pawn there. So the basic idea of this is that if they now go e6, as actually my opponent does in the game, I can go g3 or knight f3. The move order doesn't matter too much. I definitely don't need to worry about knight f3 because now about playing knight f3 immediately, because now that they've committed to e6, I don't need to be worried about e5, which is the main reason to go knight f3 first, to avoid these reverse Sicilian lines. But of course I'm a Sicilian player with black as well most of the time, so I don't mind getting a reverse Sicilian at all either. So yeah, absolutely no reason to rush with knight g3, knight f3 after e6. So yeah, just start off with g3, and yeah, they play for d5. And now, yeah, the point of this, I go bishop g2, and the point of starting with this move order of c4 in opposed to knight f3 is now if they want to play for the reverse Benoni lines with d4, which is objectively black's best way of playing, they are down 2 tempi instead of just 1. Of course, if they chose to play a Benoni in this position with d4, they're already down a tempo because they've got the black pieces, and they're down a second tempo because at some point in these structures you want to play e5. So that's kind of the advantage of going c4 first, in opposed to 1g3 or 1 knight f3, which is actually why... Actually, I believe I do play c4, but I've played both g3 and knight f3 in the other move orders as well. This is the reason to go c4 first, basically, in my opinion. Of course, there are other advantages to g3 and knight f3, and there are reasons to choose any of them. They're all totally reasonable. We get knight f3, knight f6 and knight f3, and now they choose to take on c4, which is a totally reasonable move. And yeah, I don't love it for black, because as happens in the game, I jump out with my queen, I immediately snatch the pawn back, and I feel like I have a good sort of position here. I've got a fantastic bishop, I've got a bit of a lead in development. Of course, I've also brought out my queen early, which everyone knows, you bring your queen out early, it can give your opponent some quick development, but actually in this scenario I think my position is very comfortable. This is a totally reasonable line to take, but normally you wait for someone to commit to d4, so actually in this scenario there are a couple less sort of holds in my position, which doesn't actually necessarily mean my position is better, because I still have less space, but I just find it slightly easier to play. We get c5 from my opponent, so grabbing some space in the centre and stopping me from going for the immediate d4, which would transpose into the other Catalan lines. And now I go knight f to e5, and I'm just hoping to pick off their light square bishop so that I have a completely unopposed, beautiful Catalan bishop or neo-Catalan bishop in this scenario on the open diagonal. We get queen to c8. Obviously, you need to prevent bishop takes b7, and I'm in no rush to trade off this bishop. It's not going anywhere, so I just develop my knight first. This knight will always want to come to the c3 square. The only other option, actually, which I was considering, which is potentially interesting, was going knight a3 in this position. I'm not sure if that's something that's been played before. Knight A3, yeah, it's been played quite a few times in the Masters database, apparently. I was considering that in this position, but the line that I've looked at and the line that I've played before is Queen A4. So I thought, as the high-rated player in the game, no reason to make myself potentially uncomfortable by going for something that I don't need to. So yeah, just get a simple position and play chess, but I do, to a certain extent, almost end up regretting that decision. We get Queen C8, we get Knight C3, Knight C6, and yeah, finally, now I have somewhere to be. If I don't take, then my knight is forced back or traded off, so I need to take the bishop if I want that unopposed bishop. Although, at the same time, the C8 bishop is often a problem piece in this line for black, so I've also spent 3 tempi trading off a bishop that's often a problem piece for black, but at the same time, positional advantages. I have the long-term bishop pair. It's quite an open position. If I can put them on useful squares, that would be quite nice. C5 is a target. Yeah, so I mean, it's chess. It's hard to be losing this early in the game. It's just a totally reasonable position. I castle, get my king safety. We get bishop e7. D3. I choose to go to D3 instead of D4. Instead of trying to play for D4 with moves like E3 and rook D1. I'm in no hurry, and I can get my bishop out first. And my main pawn break is still going to be either D4 or B4, and I'll get them in at some point. We get castles and bishop to G5. And now, of course, in this position, I have an immediate threat to potentially ruin their structure. I have an idea of taking on F6, and if they take back with the bishop, then I win the pawn on C5, so they are forced to take back with the G-pawn, which isn't the end of the world, but I mean, you don't really want the slightly open king, and I think, almost more importantly, this slightly odd pawn structure with double pawns on the f-file and the h7 pawn. So yeah, we get bishop to g5, and now they find a move that I hadn't really been considering. They play this knight d4 move. I didn't really think this was... it wasn't on my radar before they played it, because I was thinking here, I just continue with my plan. I take on f6. If they take back with the g-pawn, then they've messed up their structure and they take back with the bishop, then they've screwed up. Then I can take on c5. But I choose not to take in this position. And also, there's a nice idea here, of course. If they take here, of course, the other idea of going to d4 is that they're threatening to trap my queen with this move b5, which is crazy, because super perfectly reasonably placed queen, and actually all of a sudden out of the blue there's this tactic of b5 threatening to trap my queen. This actually doesn't matter. I can still take on f6, and the point is that b5, I actually have knight takes b5, because I've already picked up the knight on f6, it doesn't matter, and I'm completely winning in that position. I'm up a pawn. I believe I'm completely winning in that position. I'm up a pawn, I've got the open diagonal for my bishop, I'm threatening to win the rook, they're going to need to take back my knight at some point, or my bishop, sorry, the knight on b5, or bishop on f6. They can take on e2 with check once my knight moves, but you've given up too much material, I think. So I do still legitimately have this option, but I decided against it, because I was looking at it, and I was thinking takes back with the bishop, sacrificing the c5 pawn, which is not a totally uncommon idea. I was looking at just options for my opponent, such as, like, I'm not sure which rook you want to move, I'm not sure if you need to keep a7 defended, but presumably you want to play rook fc8 and hitting my queen, and actually I was really uncomfortable there because I couldn't really find a good square to move my queen to. Additionally, there are lots and lots of potentially uncomfortable ideas for black, gaining a lot of tempo and a lot of activity for the pawn. This kind of pawn sacrifice is pretty common in these lines as well, so I assumed that it was generally okay. Also, by the way, stick around till the end, because I will be checking each of the games. I mean, I did have a quick look after each of the games that I played, but I haven't properly analysed any of them with the engine, so stick around till the end. I'm just talking you through my thoughts, and then at the end we'll have a look with the engine. So, yeah. I didn't want to take on c5. The engine probably says it's sound and it wins a pawn, but it looks uncomfortable to me, so I decided not to go for that, to play the simpler move, just a4. Just keeping the b5 square covered, no need to be concerned. And the reason I didn't feel any rush to sort of get this advantage is I just felt my position was like good as well, like just objectively. Like I can bring my rook to c1, I can bring my rook to d1, I can play e3, and I can play for d4. I can build up my position very slowly. I still have the bishop pair, which I can hold on to, or I can trade it off and try and mess with their structure a little bit. I just felt that my position was good. There's no need to rush into a line which potentially gives my opponents more opportunities than their position deserves. Not than, like, them as a player deserves, like, but you've got the black pieces. I don't want to give my opponent too much counterplay. So, absolutely. We get rook to c8, which makes a lot of sense, just keeping an extra eye on this pawn, moving out the way of this diagonal. And now e3, and after e3, I was very much expecting them to go back. I think this move is a mistake, because they choose to jump into the position. And I think that this just wastes time, because I think the best place that this knight can reach from c2 is to go all the way back to c6. Sorry, not c7. And the issue is you've just spent a lot of time by going round to c2, and then back to b4, and then round to c6. And the thing is, I'm not going to hit it with tempo, I just want to go to d1 to support the d4 pawn push. And now I've also got other ideas as well of potentially knight to b5. My knight to b5, attacking their knight, and threatening to take on a7, which would win a pawn, and give me a very comfortable edge. So they have to bring their knight back to avoid those kinds of ideas, and I'm just like, where is this knight going? Why is it better here than it would have been on c6? And as you see, this knight actually ends up coming back to c6 eventually. It does a long round trip to get there. But I feel like it was just... This was an unnecessary knight journey for my opponent. And I feel like this is a thing that a lot of slightly not weak players by any means, but slightly weaker than like 2100 deal with, is that sometimes people get a bit too excited by the idea of a tempo move, but I'm really not sure what the move knight c2 actually achieves, other than giving me a bit more time. So I take on f6 now. Oh yeah, and the point of taking on f6 now is because I want to play d4. And if I play d4 immediately, then I believe that they have the option of takes. But if I take first, and they take back with the bishop, if they take back with the pawn, then of course they ruin their pawn structure as discussed. But now I can play d5, and they cannot take, because I take the knight, and my knight isn't hanging because of the pin to their queen. Was my idea. And I just thought that this looked really uncomfortable for black. I couldn't find any objective reason that they'd be like losing or anything in this position, like after a move like queen e7, which is what they play in the game. But I just couldn't find anything that I particularly liked for the black pieces here. And after just a move like knight to e4, just hitting the bishop, this bishop has no good squares to go to. I've got threats of taking. You can't take back with the queen yet again because b7 is hanging, so you'd have to take back with the pawn, get the pawn structure while there are still pawns on both sides. And especially in this kind of position and in classical chess, I think my bishop is better than his knight. So I thought after the trade, I'm a little bit better off. I actually calculated all of this back here when I took on f6. And all the way back here, I did actually miss that he had this knight d5 move. I saw it close to the time, and I decided I didn't mind terribly much. Because, I mean, it avoids the pawns getting doubled, but I think my position is still totally fine, and you can't expect to have some concrete advantage out of the opening with the white pieces anymore, not against a well-prepared opponent. So, I can't complain, my position is comfortable. I'm not winning, but hardly surprising. I come up with this move, which is probably not the most... Hero's considering a lot of things, actually. Hero's considering queen b3, takes on c5, knight takes f6. I considered briefly knight takes c5, but I couldn't find anything after b6 and the pin. I thought that was just losing. And there was some other move I was considering as well. I'm sure it will come to me at some point, or it won't, and that's fine. But yeah, I end up going for this move, queen b5 instead. I think that all of these other... I was trying to make d takes c5 work for a long time. Obviously the response is bishop takes b2, I assume, by my opponent. And the issue is I want to have this really nice outpost for the knight on the d6 square, but the issue is just immediately there's a capture on d6. My queen is pinned. So I was thinking maybe there's some scenario in which I can play c takes b5, bishop takes b2, and then I can play queen to b5 or queen to b3. And the point is that I get out of the way of the pin, so I can jump in with my knight, and I'm hitting the bishop, so I get it with tempo. So, but the issue with these lines, actually I'll just show you, is that once the bishop retreats, or what I thought the issues with these lines were, was once the bishop retreats to a3, I can't jump in with my knight, because you just take, and it's defended by the bishop. Now my knight's getting chopped off, and black's up a pawn. I think black is probably comfortably better in this position. I was desperately trying to make one of these ideas work, but eventually I couldn't, so I went for the slower option of just going queen to b5 first. So the point of this move is that I'm keeping an eye on b7, so my big threat is to take on f6, and yet again now they have to take back with the g-pawn. If it was white's move and I take on f6, they have to take back with the g-pawn. If you take back with the queen, obviously I can take on b7 immediately, and if you take back with the knight, then yet again I can take on b7 immediately. Both of these pieces are anchored down to supporting the b7 pawn, whether that's through blocking the bishop or just active immediate defense. They're both anchored to this pawn, so that's my immediate threat. I was expecting... What was it I was expecting in this position? I was expecting some move to basically defend it. I think b6 is bad, because I think I can just take and split their pawn structure. I'm trying to remember what it was I was expecting my opponent to play in this position. Maybe just something simple to keep it defended, like rook to c7. But then c5 is falling. Maybe this position is much more tricky than I thought. Well, they I believe make a mistake. What was the move that I had for them here? This position looks very, very hard to play. What was it? Okay, no worries. We'll check with the engine at the end. We had a6. Yeah. I believe that this is a mistake with the move a6, because now I get the opportunity, as I explained, to take on f6, and they have to take back with the g-pawn. Now, I brought my queen back to e2. The engine slightly prefers... I actually, sorry, from my previous analysis, I remember the engine slightly preferring this queen to c4 move to block my opponent from playing c4, as they do, which makes a lot of sense. I just wanted to keep my queen a bit more centralized, have the option of jumping out to the king side and starting to attack the slightly weakened pawn structure around my king, around my opponent's king, sorry. But they find this c4 move, which is a really, really nice one. Actually, I do just want to say quickly, like, I don't think I've had, like, such a good game put up by an 1850, like, since I've been at my current rating. Like, actually, I don't even think that they were 1850 off rating, but they deserve to be. They deserve to be higher rated than that. I thought that my opponent played a really, really nice game, and they made it really, really difficult for me. Most of the time I feel like I should be really, really confident against 1800s, but honestly, like, just credit where credit is due. Like 1800 is really impressive. Like, getting to that level is not an easy thing to do, and you have to be a really good chess player. My opponent proves it. Like, this understanding is just absolutely fantastic, and putting up with the pressure that they were put under as well. Like, it's like, I felt like I played a good game, and my opponent just, as you'll see, they just don't crack. So we get queen h5. The idea of queen h5, obviously I'm threatening to just win a pawn in the center and ruin that pawn structure. That would just completely win the game on the spot. But also other ideas of potentially going for, like, queen h5 f4 and bishop e5 ideas. If I'm allowed to play both of those moves, I'm just completely winning on the spot. Actually, no, I'm not, sorry, because f5 is playable because the queen is defended by the knight. But if I can remove this knight and play those ideas, then I'm completely winning. This was something that I was thinking about. It was just, I felt that the queen was required on the king's side. It was more of an intuitive decision than a calculation-based one. And with the knight hopping into my position is potentially a little scary. But actually, no, I wanted to go for this idea so that they couldn't jump into the position with the knight. Because, like I was discussing, if they try and plant their knight on this beautiful d3 square, bishop e5 wins the game on the spot. You can't play f5 because I take your queen. There is actually no other way of defending the h7 pawn, and white is completely winning. So my idea of queen h5 was sort of make sure that this knight was stuck in the center of the board. They just played very calm, collected, rook f to d8, which, yeah, very sensible move, just keep the knight defended, of course. And now I go e4. I'm trying to grab some space in the center, trying to control the center, kick that knight away. And also, now I'm potentially threatening moves such as e5, which I think would be quite a serious thing to deal with. Yet again, if they jump in with their knight, I think e5 is very, very dangerous. And it's very complicated, because potentially they can take on b2, take on e6, go back to f8, and after bishop to e4, I was looking at h6, and I couldn't find an immediate breakthrough win for white, but I was just sort of trusting my evaluation that that position, there must be something, surely. Must be able to make something work. Maybe not, we'll check it with the engine afterwards, but I assumed that I assumed that white was doing well there. They trust my evaluation, or my calculation, or they look through the line themselves and just decided to agree. They go knight back to c6. Yep, that knight finally made its way back to c6. Could have just gone back to c6 immediately, but okay, what can you do? So now I've got a couple of other ideas. I've got this idea of pushing on d5. I've got this idea of sort of trying to run a pawn storm in the center with f4 and still trying to play 3-5. But now the queen's defended, it's not such a big concern. Of course, my d4 pawn is under attack, so I need to... So basically I decide I need to push d5. And unfortunately that lets them jump to this nice e5 square, which is very useful for them in lots of ways. But it also grabs some space. If they take it, then I think I'm much better in that position. I've got a really nice defended passed pawn, and their kingside pawn structure is in shambles. Maybe they've got good counterplay on the queen side with their pawns, but I think that should be a good position for white. So yeah, we get knight to e5, and now I go king to h1. Point of king to h1, I'm just preparing this f4 move, because currently the issue with f4 immediately was that they can jump queen c5 with tempo, is the crucial detail, and then when king to h1 they're threatening knight to d3, they can go knight to d3, sorry, and they've got ideas of jumping in on f2. My dark squares are very weak, and I'm probably okay after a move like g4 to just defend the f2 square with my queen, but yet again, I mean, maybe they can take on b2 there, and they've got a very fast-moving c-pawn. It just looks like a very scary position. Yet again, maybe I'm okay, maybe I've got e5 and takes ideas, but it's unnecessary to introduce all of these complications, so I just play this preparing move first. I just slide my king to the side. Now we get b5, trying to connect all of their pawns. Now I can play my f4 move, force their knight back. And I really think I probably should have gone queen g4 here to make the pin and force their king out the way. I couldn't really find anything particularly good for me after queen g4, king h1, so that's why I don't end up playing that, but I think I probably should, because after king h1 I probably can just play something like f5 immediately, but yet again, knight e5, or I can take here first, potentially, but it's messy, so I'm not upset about my choice. I go to h5, and the point of going to h5 is kind of to try and maintain the position a little better, maintain my positional advantages, keep the d-pawn protected. I calculated a couple of things here as well. I was looking at potentially like queen c5, queen b5 moves. I think queen c5 was still a good option, actually. Well, we can check that with the engine afterwards, but actually it kind of makes my position very difficult to play. I wasn't totally sure I think I was going to play something like maybe queen back to e2 if they did that. Well, actually, no, sorry. After queen c5, I was going to play f5 was my idea. But yet again, that gives them the opportunity to return to the e5 square, so I thought that was potentially good for them. I was considering a couple of moves after queen c5, and then the other thing I calculated was queen to b5, b4, after which I think I take and play queen e2. But yet again, very, very complicated position. My opponent does make a mistake here. I think that this is undoubtedly a mistake. They go rook to c7. And this is a clean mistake for the obvious reason that I'm just picking up. Oh, sorry, not totally obvious, but after all of these trades, I'm just going to be able to pick up the b5 pawn. And I do that. But the issue is, a pawn doesn't decide the game, especially not at this level. Like, it's an advantage, definitely, and it's a concrete advantage, which is lovely. But after my opponent's next move, which is absolutely, like, genius by them, they find the c3 move, trading off these outside pawns, and without that extra outside pawn, it becomes really hard to make progress in this position. They take, and here I should really look at applying pressure to this weak pawn on e6 by moves like bishop h3, but honestly this position is just a draw. Like, they've traded off enough in theory that this endgame is just a draw. I try to make things complicated by opening up their king a little bit and applying some pressure to this f6 pawn, but just king g7, and it's very simple that they can actually just hold this position. And at this point I was like, wow, we've played for like 4 hours, and my opponent has slipped up a couple of times, but nothing critical. Like, my position is nice, I'm up a pawn, but actually there should be no reason that this position is winning. So honestly, I just want to take a moment and just say congrats to my opponent, and like, also just, well played to 1800s. Like, if this is what it takes to be 1800 nowadays, like, damn, that's hard work. I mean, yeah, I mean, I originally got to 1800 by playing these like b3, bishop, b2, f4 systems, which are good, but I just don't think I could get away with that nowadays. Like, people's theory and people's play is just at another level to where it was when I was trying to get to that level. Which is crazy given that I'm like, that I'm my age. I'm not old. I've been playing chess for a long time, but like, the fact that I'm looking back on like chess a few generations ago and I'm being like, this is ridiculous. It's crazy. It's so impressive. So yeah. I trade rooks because actually I don't think that keeping the rooks on the board helps me. I think with the knight, rook and queen all around my king is potentially a little unsafe. So yeah, I trade and I go for this h4 move because I need to make some breathing room for my king on back rank. Also, of course, I'm threatening h5 to win the knight. So they go king to h6, which honestly was not a move I was expecting to play, but it's yet again a very nice move. Here I was trying to calculate some like h5, knight e4, queen f5, threatening f6 ideas, but yet again I couldn't see why I was doing it. I couldn't see the point. I thought my opponent played very well, and the issue is now we start shuffling. We shuffle a lot. I offer a trade of queens. I'm praying that they take the trade of queens. In the end game with a pawn up, there's usually good chances that I can kind of surround the knight with the pawns and the bishop, and then if I'm a pawn up in the king and pawn endgame, then generally that's winning. But my opponent, very sensible, again, very good understanding. They refuse to trade queens, and we shuffle a lot. A lot. And there are lots of different ideas in this position. After I repeated moves here, my opponent actually offered me a draw, and I was like, it is a draw. I know it's objectively a draw. I know this position is a draw, but I mean, I have to play on. I'm the higher rated player. It's the first round of the Congress. I'm a pawn up. Like, there should be no realistic losing chances for me here, even though we're both down to like 2 minutes on the clock. But I've got to play on. I've just got to try and prove some advantage from my extra pawn and from my rating and from the fact I had the white pieces. I mean, I feel like I need to apply some pressure at least. And I'm glad I did, because we get queen to f3, and yeah, again, actually, I think they could have even claimed a threefold repetition at some point. I mean, sorry, it wasn't a DGT game. It wasn't on a live board, so this is from my analysis, but because of the time control being 110 minutes plus 10 seconds every move. If you don't have an increment of 30 seconds or more, you don't have to record your moves after you go under 5 minutes. We both have 2 minutes at this point, so we've stopped recording, so this is from my memory. Very tired memory, a lot of maneuvering, and those kinds of positions with a lot of maneuvering are really hard to remember as well. So give me a little bit of a break if I've misremembered anything, and I think I have, but I can't remember it. It was a late night, and this was a few days ago now, so I'm trying my best. But I eventually go for this H5 because I have to try and make progress. I try and get them into a little bit of time trouble before that. I try and wait till they're under a minute before I ask them any of the critical questions, which I think is a good rule of thumb. You should always sort of like maneuver, wander around, wait until your opponent is under real pressure to sort of ask the difficult questions. So now I bring my queen back, and we get knight to c6. And this is a critical mistake, actually. Sorry. I think it's okay at this point, although it does allow queen e6, which I think is okay after a move like queen to c3, which just about keeps everything covered. But then maybe I have a move like e5, and if you take, then I take on f6, but then you take on h5, so it's still a very... Oh, actually, can you even take on it? Oh, I mean, it's a very interesting position, and we're both very low on time. I go a queen to g8. Yeah, I think this is where I've misremembered, because I think that my bishop was on f3 and my king was on h3 at this point. But I found a way to sort of shuffle back. Oh, sorry. Yeah, so, yeah, sorry. So actually, I think in this position, I think I went bishop h6, queen b2, here, here. Yeah, I think this is correct. Now queen to b2. And now I went for this h5 idea, forcing that knight back to e7. I played queen to g4, and now they played knight c6, which is, of course, a critical mistake. I have quite a simple tactic here of going queen to f4 and queen to c7 once the king is forced back, and I'm picking up the knight, and that's completely winning. Of course, I'm low on time, I'm very tired, give me a little bit of credit. I go queen to g8 instead, because I was just immediately seeing this checkmate idea of playing queen to f8, king g4, queen g7, and that's just simply checkmate on the spot. So yeah, I was going for the kill, but this is not as accurate as the other line because it allows the queen to return to b4, keeping an eye on the f8 square. And actually, here I don't think I have a particularly useful way of making progress until my opponent proceeds to blunder the same tactic again. And in this position, my opponent resigned. I got a little lucky that they offered the same tactic up twice, and at least I spotted it once. But yeah, no, it's why it's worth applying this pressure and playing out these endgames where you're a little better, especially in time trouble. I mean, the thing is, yeah, I mean, that's the real difference between, like, the stronger and, like, the slightly higher rated players a lot of the time is just experience in these time scramble positions. So, yeah, it's worth playing out these positions. And just sort of grinding out the endgame and getting the experience as well. It's important, because if I'd given my opponent the draw, then the issue is they wouldn't have had the experience of playing this endgame, and next time they get this endgame, or get a similar endgame, they just won't have that extra bit of practice. Or if they're in the white perspective, they won't have seen how to apply the pressure accurately. Like, you've got to just enjoy the game and just play on. I hope that it was an interesting game. I'm going to have a quick look with the engine, although the video's gone on a little bit, so I don't want to burn everyone. Yeah, of course this position is winning. But yeah, I'm going to have a quick look with the engine, just shuffle through to some of those key moments. Yeah, so of course the engine doesn't dislike my position, but I haven't played anything super critical and my opponent hasn't made any mistakes, so what can you expect? Okay, so the engine did want bishop f6 in this position, but they didn't want me to take the pawn. Wow, wait, no. So in this position, after bishop takes g6, wow, queen c5 is just possible and good. But I should go e3 first. Wow, but the point is, like, not even e3 knight c6 takes. I go knight e4 there. Wow. Wow. That makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. I guess I only considered grabbing the free pawn, but it's an important lesson. Of course, you don't have to. Right? Like, just continue to apply pressure and ask questions. That's very instructive. But yeah, so in the game we get a4, takes. Yes, and like I said, this idea of queen knight c2 is definitely just a waste of time. Wow. Engine being the engine, rook fd8, the point being that if takes, and my knight on c3 is going to fall. Wow, what a move. But yeah, knight c6 is still best. So, c2, rook a d1, of course, supporting d4. Knight b4 is pretty much forced. And now I can take on f6, and I have this f4 break. This d4 break, and they just don't have a particularly comfortable response. Yeah, I mean, queen c7 as well, just runs into knight b5. It's not a particularly comfortable position, so yeah. Queen e7 is the best move, knight e4, yeah, again, applying some pressure. And wow, knight d5 is a big mistake. Knight d5 is a big mistake. Wow, that's interesting. That's a line I was actually considering in this. I was considering takes, and rook fc1. But I didn't know how good this was. I just thought that this was hard to evaluate. Like, I thought there was potentially opportunities of takes. And I know that I get the 2 rooks for the queen, which is generally considered quite good, but while they have the knight and the queen combination, I wasn't totally sure how to evaluate that, but I guess I pick up some pawns in the process, perhaps? Maybe not. Wow, this is a really important point. So this is just much worse then. I just thought that this was tricky. I thought this was hard to evaluate, but no, just... This is the idea I missed. Because they can't recapture because of the mate, obviously, and now I'm threatening bishop c6, and there's no way to stop bishop c6. Okay, that is the critical detail I missed. So maybe this position is harder to evaluate if, like, let's say that we give them a free move. Let's say I go like h3 and g6. Now if I go rook c1, yeah, they can just take on d4. And actually, yeah, I was like, my evaluation skills were correct, but my tactics weren't. So I had the tactical refutation, but actually my thought that the pawns and the queen and knight combination would actually be better than the rooks and the bishop was, yeah, basically the right idea, the right point. And practically, it's very complicated, of course, and it could have gone either way. But I'm kind of happy that my evaluation was correct, even if my calculation was not so good. But yes, of course, I missed this idea, and I go for queen to b5, which is a mistake. Yes. Now I remember. I thought they had to go c takes d4 here, and then we would get takes, knight takes, bishop takes d4, rook takes d4, and then we'd play chess, but I just thought I had slightly better activity, and I thought my bishop was slightly better than the knight. Like, yeah, I thought the position was balanced, but I had some practical edge. But instead, of course, they make the mistake, as we discussed in the game, a6, and this is a big mistake. But yeah, so this is one of the things I remember from my original analysis. I should come back to c4 to stop them from playing c4 themselves. Yeah. No, that's a good point to take away. Don't give them that majority on the queen side. But instead queen e2, which is still okay. c4 is an important move. And this is where I start to go wrong a little bit. I think, okay, so the engine wants a5 to stop them from getting this connected pawn structure on the queen side at all. Or it wants me to play for e4 immediately. It's an interesting idea. It's a very interesting idea. Sorry. Sorry. Instead, yeah, I go for this, which, yeah, again, is slight inaccuracy. Not the most critical options. I really need to go a5 according to the engine. The reason I didn't go a5 for anyone that's interested is I thought it would just become more of a target. I thought after a move like queen c7, potentially, it's just getting picked off. Not immediately, perhaps, but long term. But, of course, the all-seeing engine oracle isn't scared of these critical variations because it calculates it all perfectly. But instead, okay, we go e4, which is still totally reasonable. We get knight b4, and we get a queen to h5. And this is my mistake. Queen to h4. We have to go for d4 immediately, but I thought this looked very scary, running into ideas like knight d3, and I'd actually calculated this top engine line with knight b2, and yeah, just looking at this top engine line, this is actually what I'd calculated, but I just thought that this was very hard to evaluate. No, I hadn't calculated. Sorry. No, yeah. This is what I'd calculated, but I just thought this was very hard to evaluate. I thought they've got a very far advanced passed pawn. Yeah, I think that this is, from a human perspective, like, very hard to go for. Like, you've allowed them a far advanced passed pawn. I guess their knight is potentially getting trapped, but wow, you've got to trust your calculation abilities a lot. And even then, this position is technically equal according to the engine, so I think from a practical point of view, my move was probably slightly better going for this queen h4 idea. Wow, they have to play king g7. King g7 is a crazy move. I don't see how king d7 stops e5 or d5 ideas. But they've got a couple of options, and they do choose one of them, but not the best one. They go back to c6. This is okay. Shuffle. Okay, and this is like a big mistake. I have to go to g4 and play king h8 and h4. Okay, wow. So, okay, I mean, this is still objectively fine. Yeah, I was expecting them to take in this position, but luckily for me, they make the mistake now. Oh, that's interesting. You know how I was talking about queen c5 in this position? The engine's recommending rook to c5, which actually makes a lot more sense now I think about it. That's a nice move. But yeah, okay, I get lucky, they make this mistake. But the issue is, this c3 move is really, really nice. And I don't find the right plan in this line, f5, and it's just a draw. Yeah, and there's no real way to apply pressure. And we maneuver, we shuffle. Bishop f3. Okay, but wait, so where do they go wrong then? Well, so when they allow h5, this is where things start to look uncomfortable. But I should go queen f4 here, and after queen g5, it's not so good. Yeah, this is of course a critical error that we discussed, but I miss it. Queen e6, and here I have to go bishop e2, or bishop g4. And I guess the point is that their position, I guess they're in Zugzwang of some kind. Like, they don't have any good moves that can hold everything together. Wow, that's very clever. But yeah, I mix it up, and then they blunder the tactic again, and we get a win first round. So yeah, come back. I think I'll probably upload the next sort of section of this tomorrow, but I hope that was useful, I hope that was instructive, and I hope it was interesting. And yeah, come back to watch the next game in the tournament tomorrow. All the best, have a nice day. Cheers, bye.